Hello, everybody, and welcome back once more to Anime Yay or Nay. I'm TheOutbackAl.
I'm cheating you.
And I'm Envy Jitters.
I was waiting for Gav to say his name first.
Nope, Gav's not with us today, unfortunately, which kind of sucks because it's the last.
Oh.
It's the last day of Junji Ito. We have finished the series of the Junji Ito collection with episodes 10 through, we're going to call it 13. It's 12, but there's two OVA, short half OVA things at the end.
Yep.
And I don't know, what did we think about all these collectively? I suppose we could say we could think about the whole series collectively at the end, but what about these individual episodes?
These were definitely the most, the first 3 episodes were definitely, out there, but these episodes were probably the most, I don't want to say creative, but more abstract out of all of them to me.
Maybe a little bit.
I was underwhelmed.
Oh yeah, me too. But as far I'm trying to be positive a little bit.
I won't say I was completely underwhelmed. I certainly remember some better than others, but I did have a really good time with one of them. But we'll get to that. So how did this all start? This really started last week whenever Envy told us not to eat before watching episode 10.
Greased. The first segment of episode 10.
Yeah, this one's pretty gross.
I'm just gonna... Can you tell me the part that you, kind of got almost sick at, Envy, when you get to it? Because I couldn't think of a part where I got like that throughout the episode. I'm just I don't get it.
Well, I guess we'll talk about the plot, then I'll tell what part I got grossed out at.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so there's a girl who lives in a restaurant with her family, and mom passed away, so no one's there to clean the place anymore, because obviously dad can't do it for some reason. It's not really explained.
Because he's too busy running his restaurant.
Running his unsuccessful restaurant, yes. And the place has gotten greasy, as the title suggests. It's all slick with oil, and it's grimy. Everybody smells and sticky, and the girl was starting to be like, okay, God, this place is saturated with grease and oil. And she's like, it's 50%. You can smell it in the air. It's 50% oil. And her brother is drinking oil. And everything's gross and everything is terrible. And then her brother hits puberty and he starts getting a bunch of zits. And he gets even greasier, and people make fun of him for it. And then he stays at home all day, getting even greasier. And eventually so he grabs his sister, who I guess he thought was making fun of her, and he squeezes all of his zits onto her face.
That was the part that grossed me out. That's one of my... Anything with bodily fluids and, bodily pusses and sores, that's one of my biggest peeves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
personally,
it was definitely very gross of him to do, but I was not at the point that I was going to puke.
Well, I wasn't puking, but I had to look away. I that's just one of my pet peeves, or I cannot stand bodily fluids.
There's a whole show about that now called Dr. Pimple Popper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know people are obsessed with that.
Why?
I've seen a few clips.
I don't want to. I haven't even seen it. I don't want to watch that.
I mean, I don't watch it, but I kind of understand the fascination with what's in there and what's causing this kind of
It's never good.
It's never good, but
You're
at
never
the same
gonna
time,
find-
it's just kind of
You're never gonna find the keys to your car or something in there, or a ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Nothing's good is in there.
No, I think a lot of people just find it, and this sounds like such a stereotypical word, but they find it satisfying to see a blemish or something sort of it's because a lot of the things that they show on that show are sort of abnormally huge. So it's just kind of people enjoy seeing that, broken open and getting it back to normal to where the skin looks as it should.
And they're also just morbidly curious on how disgusting the human body can be.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I pop my pimples sometimes.
We all do, but we don't talk about it. I don't know. Just, yeah, I'm with you, Envy. Anyway, the kid gets bashed over the head with a frying pan by the dad because he's like, what the hell? And then suddenly they have very good meat, and you know exactly where it came from.
Yep.
Yeah, restaurant does pretty well, but then they run out of meat. What are they going to do? Well, dad starts feeding his daughter oil while she's sleeping, and she's like, no, no. And so then he starts drinking oil, and eventually chopped off his own leg to use as meat in the restaurant, I guess. It got really weird at the end.
So, my one thing that I will say is that, like, I don't know. It's just, this episode was not scary, necessarily.
No, it was
Just
pretty just gross.
My biggest thing for me was, I don't know what it's like in Japan with like child protective services, but like certainly she could have, said, "Hey, I'm living in a bad home. Get me out of here."
She could have just run away.
Yeah.
But like if she didn't have a family to go to or anything like that, like if there was like an agency that could, house her, so she's still technically a minor.
The thing is we've seen plenty of shows now where it's kind of normal for a child to sort of be living on their own without a lot of parental supervision. So it really makes me wonder just how much children are looked after. And that's in their society. I don't know.
At the same time, I almost wonder if like the anime stuff that we see where it's like, oh, they're always living on their own or have absentee parents or something, how common is that? Or is it just a thing to be like, so we don't have to worry about what the parents are doing while the hero of the story is doing something?
I mean, I think it's partially that, but I also sort of know that there's this thing in Japan where mothers and maternal figures are a lot more common to have in a child's life than, like, a father or, like, a paternal presence.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the absence of a mother figure, which kind of is a little more maybe potentially prevalent now since a lot more like women are in the workforce, so potentially like it might be a thing, but maybe not quite as big as like we see it in like the media that we generally watch.
Yeah, I can understand.
I'm not sure. So but yeah, so there is that.
In any case, gross episode.
Part 2.
But it was followed by a less gross episode.
Yes.
Yeah, the bridge. Am I remembering that right? The bridge thing? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so a lady is going to see her grandmother, who her grandfather has died recently, and grandma's living all alone now and in a house over in the middle of nowhere. And she's kind of like, oh, I'm going to go see her, make sure she's doing okay and all that sort of stuff. And there's this bridge that she has to walk over because she can't drive her car all the way to the house because of the forest, I think. And she has to walk over this little bridge to get to the house. And while she's walking there, she sees an old man. And she's like, oh, are you coming to visit my grandmother? And he doesn't have a face. Well, he has a face, but it's mostly... he looks like a zombie. And she freaks out and runs to her grandma and is like, hey, let me in. There's a zombie out here or something. Some sort of evil demonic spirit of something. Grandma lets her in. They lock the doors behind them and they're like, oh, yeah, that's my uncle. Not a big deal. He died a while ago and we floated him down the river because that was a tradition for a long time. So apparently, what used to happen in this town was that you would, when someone died, you put their body on some sort of floor mat, and you float them down the river. And whenever they got to the bridge, if they bounced off the bridge and fell in the water, their spirits stayed there. And if they didn't, and they just float out down the river, they got to go to heaven.
Yep,
So,
that was
yeah.
the premise.
So her uncle and a
Yeah.
whole bunch of other people apparently
Literally
have.
leaving your internal fate to chance.
Oh yeah, they
It's a
have.
curse.
Yeah, they kind of fell off their mats and into the river, and now they're haunting the river, and they're like, "Hey, Grandma, you're gonna die soon. Can't wait to jump in the river with us, can ya? It's gonna be fun. It's good times." And she's like, "I had a boyfriend when I was much younger who died. He was very tall, and he died. We had to use 2 mats for him, and he blocked the river because he
Yep.
fell off and he was stiff, like from the rigor mortis, and yeah, he got stuck on the bridge that they had to like pull him off the bridge." And yeah, he's among them too. And then the girl wakes up after Grandma's like, "Bury me in the ground. I don't want to go to the river." Yeah, she wakes up because it was all a dream. But she continues on to the house and sees an old man on the bridge, and she's like, "Hi, how you doing?" And he's like, "Oh no, Grandma died." And she's like, "What? Grandma's dead?" And she goes and runs into the house and finds that Grandma is dead. But there's also some torn up floor mats. Uh-oh, the ghost took Grandma, and now she's in the river. And Grandma sinks in the river.
Yep.
And all the ghosts are like, "Yay, now the two can be together forever." And I'm like, this is a happy ending? I can't tell. I can't tell if this is a happy ending or not.
So it's more of a bittersweet ending because the grandma didn't want to like go down the river because she probably kind of figured the curse would do the same thing to her, but at the same time, like, because she's the last of their village to like join the rest of them, that I guess the rest of them felt they could leave. So
If that's what happened, great. They get to move on now. If not, then I guess too bad for Grandma.
That was my impression that, she just joined them in the internal limbo. Like they can't go to heaven, they're just stuck there.
well,
Damn.
no, because their spirits are continuing to float down the river.
Uh-uh.
Yeah,
So-
but are they just going to float forever, or are they just floating forever?
It's up to interpretation. At least they all have each other.
Alrighty. I guess it's something.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any thoughts on these 2 episodes other than gross grease?
Not really. Like I said, I was underwhelmed.
Yeah, I think we've seen better hauntings than the bridge one, and grease is just kind of gross. Moving on to this one I found kind of interesting, the supernatural transfer student.
Oh, I found this one so annoying.
Yeah, a little bit, but at the same time, it's like something interesting is happening. Some
I
kid
guess.
shows up at a new high school, and everyone's like, "This kid's weird, but maybe he'll be cool." And there's a supernatural club where people pretend that they have superpowers, like bending spoons and seeing spirits and stuff. And then the kid finds some like eyeball plants.
Yeep.
They're just plants with eyes in them, and everyone's cool with it. Don't know why everyone's cool with it, but everyone's cool with it. Then he finds a secret waterfall that didn't exist there before, and he's like, "Hey, I got superpowers by standing under the waterfall." And he shoots a bird out of the sky with a laser, and everyone doesn't really react to it too much. Except for one dude who's like, "Hey, I wanted to be able to bend spoons with my mind and go on TV and become famous, but, this whole bending spoons thing, it might not be that impressive." He's like, "Hey, go stand under the waterfall. It'll give you superpowers." So, that guy goes missing. No one knows what happened to him, and he's like, "Oh, I know what happened. He fell in. It was an accident or something." Because everyone's like, "Did he kill him? Did the transfer student kill our friend?" Nope, he fell in by accident when he was trying to get superpowers. And then a lake shows up where a housing complex was supposed to be, and they're like, "Oh my god, what's going on? This is not supposed to be here. This doesn't make any sense." And Godzilla is in the lake.
Yep.
And that's the point where people are like, "Okay, everything was normal until this dude showed up. Now, everything is not normal. We think it's the transfer student's fault. And then the Easter Island heads show up in this guy's neighborhood.
Yep.
Oh,
And this
but
guy
not
says he
before-
can see ghosts.
Yeah, but not before their friend comes back from the grave. He's a zombie.
Yep.
He came out of the waterfall pit thing because he fell in and did die, but he came back out and he's a bloated corpse now.
And he has superpowers.
Of course he does, because the guy who thought he could see spirits and whose house is now an Easter Island head pushed him in. I guess he was jealous of him or something, and he stood under the waterfall and gained superpowers, so we got a bloated zombie and some douchebag having a laser fight by the Easter Island heads while this other guy's just looking on, having a fun time, and all the girls are like, what the fuck is going on? Any hooser, Spirit Dude blows up the zombie. And he's like, hey, let's make this town even weirder, buddy. Let's do this. And he's like, nah, I'm good. Bye-bye. And then the next day, everything's back to normal. They're still missing two people because,
the transfer student leaves.
He leaves. And all the weirdness leaves with him.
Yep.
One dude's still dead, or missing. And Spirit Dude, who survived, went missing too. And everyone's like, is he chasing down Weird Man? No one knows. But at least things are back to normal. Probably. We hope. So, did you guys ever see The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya?
I mean, I've seen bits of it.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
I'm kind of reminded of its premise where this, there's a teenage girl who's just kind of bored with things, and she decides, like, wouldn't it be cool if this would happen? And then it does. She's not aware that she's God. And there's even theories that she's not God. And there is other sorts of ideas of, like, what's really going on. But, yeah, there's aliens and time travelers and espers and all sorts of other stuff. But, yeah, it all just sort of happens because one person was like, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? Or this would be cool if these sort of things were going on, and then they do. And it kind of reminds me of this transfer student who's just like, wouldn't it be cool if something weird happened, and then weird things just happen?
I mean, that just kind of sounds like me with wishful thinking when I was much younger in high school.
Yeah, but can you make them happen?
Nope.
Exactly.
Absolutely not. I mean, I wish I could.
Oh, we all
that
do.
would make things
We all
more
do.
interesting.
Anyway, that's kind of what it reminded me of. I think, like, I saw this comic, for the one that this was adapted from, came out in, like, 1997 or something. Mm-hmm. So it's not unreasonable to think 10 years later, maybe it was the influence for what some people worship as an anime waifu god.
That's true. Yep.
Not unreasonable. I don't know. Anyway, the other episode, because this was actually a bit of a longer episode, so they kind of made a short one for the other half. The Scarecrow, or just Scarecrow, I forget what fit out of the in it.
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow, yeah.
Because they don't have articles in Japanese.
I guess they don't, do they?
Nope, they don't use a, an, or the.
Interesting. Well, language aside, Scarecrow is about... Well, it's about a graveyard, mostly.
Yeah.
The guy buries his daughter at a graveyard. It's not really clear how she died, but he doesn't like the fact that there's a guy there who I think was supposed to marry her. He just doesn't like him.
Nope.
And he's like, stay away, and he's like, I'm going to leave these flowers here. And he pulls a scarecrow out of a field and slaps it down in front of the grave. And he's like, this scarecrow's going to keep weasels like you away. And then a day later, the scarecrow ends up looking like the man's daughter. Like the person in the grave. And he's like, look what happened. It's amazing. The scarecrow turned into my daughter. I think it's possessed by her spirit. And other people are like, well, maybe I can do that. So eventually the whole graveyard is covered in these scarecrows in front of these graves. And they all end up looking like the people that are buried there. And this one guy is kind of like, no, I don't want you to put a scarecrow in front of my son. That's creepy. It doesn't make sense. but it happens anyway.
Yep.
Then the dude who was there at the beginning of the movie, or not movie, episode, I don't want to say fiance because I don't think they've gotten that far, but yeah, he shows up.
Because in a flashback, he did ask her to marry him.
Oh, I thought that was his dream, and then she like pointed to.
I think he was remembering.
Would you love me even
it.
if I was that? And like he sees the scarecrow, and then he's waking up in the graveyard in front of the scarecrow. Meanwhile, across.
I feel. No, I was just gonna say. I feel like that was just him having like a bit of a flashback to the memory while he was dreaming,
but
and then some of it got incorporated into that.
Maybe. Yeah,
but
it's possible.
I don't know.
Open to interpretation. But meanwhile, while that guy's waking up next to a scarecrow and then running away because it's looking at him, but then ending up right in front of it again, he can't escape. The dude who didn't want his son's scarecrow to be there, he finds, and his wife finds that their son's scarecrow looks pretty weird and like angry or something.
Yep.
And he's like, "No, this is a bad scarecrow. No, get rid of it." And like he tries to rip it out of the ground. He does, but he falls backward, smacks his head off a grave, and then the scarecrow falls and the stick stabs him through the heart.
Yep.
And the wife's like, I knew it. You killed our son. And I'm like, yeah, but like this was how you proved it? A little bit weird. Anyway, then the dad shows up, and the other dad, the dad of the daughter who started the scarecrow movement, shows up and finds that his daughter's scarecrow is lying on top of the now dead fiance.
Yep.
I'm confused a little bit by this ending.
How so?
Now, the kid was murdered by his father.
Yes.
I think they're pretty much saying that that's what happened.
Uh-huh.
Did the fiance kill the woman?
No.
Or did she just want him to be with her in death?
I believe the second interpretation is the correct one.
Okay.
So, and I only say that because he didn't die a painful death. He died with her lying on top of him, and it almost looked like they were kissing.
Yeah, it did seem a little more peaceful.
So, I think the father took that as, oh, obviously this is her choice, even in death. I'm just gonna let them be.
I mean, that's nice.
So.
But, yeah. Just kind of a short little spooky graveyard story, I guess you could call this. Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot to go off of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the interesting one was the next episode. This was kind of in a weird way, this was a fun episode. It starts with something called Smashed, which I thought we were all just going to get drunk.
One.
But what actually happens is some guy is roaming through the jungles of South America, as you do, and he discovers a hidden village of people, as you do, and then he takes back with him a rare and never before tasted nectar, as you do, that it's supposed to taste better than anything else you've ever had in your life. It's so delicious. And they're like, hey, just make sure that you're not noticed when you drink it. And he has no idea what that meant. And he shows his friend, and he's like, hey, try this out. It's really good. You're going to like it. And they do. They both have a little taste. But then his friend starts bringing around some other people, and they're like, hey, we should all have a taste of the nectar. So they all go, and they grab some nectar, and they all try it out. And it's so good. Oh my god, it's the greatest thing we've ever tasted. It's basically a drug. Like, we know what some of the allegory is here. What they also find is this weird smell that smells like some rotting something, and they find a giant blood splatter against the wall.
Yep.
And they freak out and run away.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're all like, they divvied up the nectar and they're all eating it. And then one of their friends just explodes against the wall. Out of nowhere.
Head go boom.
Not head go boom, everything go boom. Yeah. So that happened. And they're like, well, what the fuck is going on? They're not really sure what to do. I think he tells them about the whole, hey, don't be noticed when you drink this thing, when you eat this thing. Someone else tries to eat it, and then they get exploded, smashed. Yep. They're smashed. Mm-hmm. Let's bury the lead here. They're basically flattened. Yep. And then it's down to, what was it, 3 people at that point, I think?
Yep.
And they're like, oh god, what are we going to do? It has to be the nectar that we're eating. We can't eat the nectar.
But then they don't want to eat anything else because nothing else tastes good anymore.
Yep. It ruined them. It ruined them so bad. And apparently some other people got like smashed or crushed or exploded or whatever's going on. And they're like, what's going on? Turns out the one friend that they have is like giving his away, trying to figure out, well, how does it work? How did they get destroyed? What's going on? Can I predict it? Can I figure out, what do I have to do to not be noticed, whatever that means? And he couldn't come up with an answer. And then one of them decides to eat the nectar. And nothing happens. Everything's fine. No worries. So the other guy tries to eat it, and then he explodes. And then the person who was next to him was like, oh my god, I saw it. It crushed him. So here's what I'll do. I'll go in the water to eat the nectar because it can't crush me in the water. And then the hand of God comes down from on high and explodes her in the water.
Yep.
And the one dude is left there just watching like, holy crap. Everything sucks. But then he finds the map in his friend's wallet that somehow miraculously was not crushed. And it shows how to get to the South America and where to go to get to the nectar source. And he finds that after, of course, swatting a mosquito on his neck while he's in South America, because there's so many mosquitoes around there, he finds the tree with a bunch of wacky waving inflatable arm flailing smashy arms. And at the base he can smell the nectar. And he goes up to the tree and he also notices that the branches are like disappearing and reappearing. But he goes up to it, he stabs the tree, he licks the nectar, and then the tree swats him dead. So yeah, we're the mosquitoes. What do you guys think about this one? I kind of liked it.
It was definitely out there. It almost felt like a horror movie in a way because you don't like any of the characters and you just are waiting for them to die one by one, but it was still entertaining.
It had a bit of like a Lovecraftian feel to it. Sort of like this otherworldly tree, and it creates some sort of like weird mind-altering substance kind of deal, and then out of nowhere it just like there's like a huge comeuppance for daring to find this thing that was not meant for humanity. I don't know. I kind of got that feeling.
I thought for me, I thought it was okay.
I didn't say it was great. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it was all right. A bit different.
Like I kind of reminded of did you guys see Ready or Not, that thriller horror movie thing that came out last year where it's basically hide and seek but deadly?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
I'd give it a watch. It's entertaining. It has a not dissimilar ending, I'll say that. But yeah, other half of the episode was
our boy Suichi makes his return.
Oh, but you know what? I don't want to ruin it just yet. So Suichi's back again. for a third time. Ugh. And this time, his trick is spreading rumors. He's doing a little whisper campaign to spread rumors about himself to make him seem way cooler than he actually is. Mm-hmm. And there's like, it's kind of just dumb stuff like, oh, I have a famous cousin, or oh, I saved a kid from being hit by a car, or this happened or that happened. And eventually, like, this is all, again, this is one of those ones that works because it's all from the perspective of someone other than Shuichi, where he's the antagonist. It's from the perspective of this girl who likes this one dude, and eventually Shuichi's like, this girl, main character girl, is in love with Shuichi. Oh my god, did you hear the new rumor? Blah blah blah. And whenever the rumor gets back to her, she's like, I don't like him. It's all a lie. He's been telling everyone lies and lies and lies about all sorts of stuff. And then everyone confronts him. He gets called on it, and he runs away like a little bitch. As Shuichi does when things go bad. But, then, this was the fun part, then a picture from a magazine is taped to the chalkboard, and it is a picture of the model from before.
From episode 1.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone's freaking out.
I was like, I'm like, oh, that's a callback.
Oh, it wasn't just a callback, because they're like going like, oh, she's like a cursed person or something, and like bad things happen to people who see these. They're basically saying like she's kind of like the Babadook or something.
Yeah.
And then there's like rumors like, oh, did you hear about the kids who like got chased down by the model? And she was like saying that she was going to eat people and this thing and that thing. And they're like, there's something about a swamp that makes you beautiful. And the girl has a romantic rival now for the heart of the dude that she likes. And there's a rumor going around that she went and she was in the swamp to make herself beautiful. And so the girl's like, well, I guess I got to do that too now. So she goes out to the swamp to take a soak in the swamp. And Shuichi shows up with a camera to take embarrassing pictures of her in a swamp. Because he started all the rumors, and how are we not surprised at all by this?
Not at all.
But then the best part happened. The model shows up. She's in the swamp. She comes out, and she's like, what are you taking pictures of me for? You're not allowed to do that. And the girl runs away, Shuichi falls over, and the model is like now even taller than she was before. She's like a giant now.
Yep.
Still with so many teeth, and they don't show it, but my hope is she ate Shuichi.
Right.
And I'm like, this is such catharsis right now.
Yeah.
Finally, true.
It's never confirmed if he dies or not, but I hope he gets mauled and just absolutely gets brutalized.
Look, he's a kid. I very much doubt they're gonna do that. And I think he works enough as an antagonist that they could keep bringing him back for other weird curse magic, whatever he does.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the point of him. Because he's had 3 little bits in this whole collection of 12 episodes.
I know he's like, I did some research. I know he's like a character in a series of shorts that Junji Ito wrote. Like, stories are either centered around him or he's a character in a bunch of stories, so
which
it would make sense.
He didn't die. But as far as this series is concerned, it's over. I don't know that they're getting a sequel, so we don't know that we're ever going to see Shuichi again. So for now, headcanon, we can say Shuichi's dead. He got eaten and finally got the comeuppance that he deserved.
It definitely felt like a season finale because it brought back him and the model.
That was cool. Like, I feel like nowadays, we've seen so many shared universe things that it's like, it's kind of old hat at this point when other people show up and stuff that you already know about. Like, Marvel movies or something. Is it that big of a surprise anymore when someone else shows up in someone else's movie? It's not. But, these are all like such small encapsulated stories and shorts and stuff, and you could like make an argument that to some degree, if you want to count the possibilities, promoted by the Infinite Worlds house that one kid had, there could be some level of a shared universe here, or at least a shared multiverse of some kind. This is just kind of interesting because it's like, this is the first time we've ever seen like a character in one story show up in someone else's story, and that was fun. That was interesting. This is kind of like what I felt like when those, we first started seeing those like cameos by people in other people's movies. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. This is just, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that ending.
And
Any other
then
thoughts
there
by
was
you guys?
the
What?
Any other thoughts on that? Or moving on to the last bit?
Moving on.
All right. The Tommy two-step, or whatever we want to call it. It's an OVA. It's a two-part.
Is it Tommy or
half of it.
Tommy? I got
I'm
confused.
calling her
Tomie.
Tommy.
Tomie.
Tommy, can you hear me? Tomie, fine.
Meow.
Let's see the Tomie origin story. Talking about superhero movies. So,
Is this the same Tomie that was in the other episodes, or is this just like a different?
Absolutely.
Same one.
Well,
Same one.
same in some shape or form. We'll call it that.
I think it's just one of her many parts.
Yeah, but we'll get to that. So, we all remember Tomie from The Painter. Well, now, this is back when she was in high school. Apparently she died. Tragic.
In a very brutal way.
Yeah, she got
We
chopped
don't
up
get till that
into
till
pieces.
later.
And they're all having a funeral. Everyone's having a funeral for her. Next day, though, she walks into class.
Yep.
It's like, hey, everybody, how we doing? People are a little disturbed by that. And some people don't entirely believe it. The teacher is asking her stuff like, who are you really? Are you twin sister? Or like, what's going on? Tomie's dead. And she's like, I'm going to be with you forever. I love you, sensei. Because apparently they had something going on. And yeah, he goes nuts. As you do, as this person tends to make people. And yeah, then two of the classmates are like, maybe we should turn ourselves in for what happened. And everyone's like, what happened? Well, then they have a flashback to a school field trip where I guess they were just like hanging out doing something in the middle of nowhere. And Tomie comes up to the teacher and they had an affair. It's very clear. And she's like, I'm pregnant. He's like, what the fuck? And then her boyfriend is like, what the fuck? And then she's like, dude, fuck off. I'm with the teacher now, and that you just got to deal with it. And then, they get into a bit of a scuffle, and she falls off the side of a cliff.
Yep.
And yeah, so she's dead. Mm-hmm. And the boyfriend's like, I got to turn myself in. I got to do this. Blah, blah, blah. And the teacher's like, do you have to turn yourself in, though? I mean, like, really? Should we even report this? And the rest of the class is going like, yeah, we didn't ever liked her anyway. She's kind of a bitch. It's
Yeah.
like,
And
God.
not only do they immediately go to think that she's dead, then the teacher just like, kids, I am your teacher. We were out here to do a lesson. How about a biology lesson where we cut her up into 42 pieces?
Yeah, they have to dispose of the body now. Mm-hmm. So everybody gets naked, as you do, and starts chopping her up. And then she wakes up halfway through.
Yep.
So, well, we're already halfway there. Might as well finish the job. And they do. They chop her up. Everybody cleans themselves off in the river. They come back.
Well, they actually kill her first.
Oh, yeah, they had to kill her. They finished the job.
Yeah.
They finished. They double tapped. And everybody gets a small little package of Tomie to hide the best place that you can. And so they do, but then Tomie shows back up. And yeah. The rest of the class is kind of going like, they're kind of pulling that I know what you did last summer thing of like, hey, we made a pact not to say anything. So they go after the people who are about to turn themselves in. Tomie shows up, and we don't know what happens after that.
Nope.
Because then it switches over to second
Much
half.
like Suichi, I did some research. She's a part of a long-running series from
That makes
Junji
sense.
Ito as well.
That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, so then we move on to a few years later when there's a girl in need of a kidney transplant at a hospital. She has some sort of disease, it's not stated what, doesn't really matter, we just know it has to do with her kidneys. And she doesn't have a donor, but her boyfriend's like, I wish I could give you my kidney and all that sort of stuff. And then she sees him outside with some girl, a very pretty girl. And of course, it's Tomie again. And then Tomie comes to see her, and she's like, "Why don't you just leave or die or do something? He's not happy with you. He blah 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 and this and that and it's basically her being Tomie, being a bitch. Mm-hmm. We're glad you're dead, kind of thing." But yeah, so the boyfriend hears that she's been talking this shit. And he goes and confronts her. He's like, "You're such a lying bitch. Why do you have to be like this?" And then she's like, "You know what? Screw you." And he's like calling after her, and I forget what the name was, like Reiko, something like that. And she's like, "Reiko, who's that? That's not even my name." And she's like, "Oh my god, literally everything I know about you is a lie. You are such a terrible person."
Reiko is actually the name of her best friend from the previous school that moved to that new town at the beginning of the episode.
Damn. Okay. So she's stealing names too. Yeah. Anyway, he's walking around late at night, and then she shows up again, and he's like, "I love you. I was just giving you a hard time before," and then he stabs her a whole bunch.
Yep.
Because a bit of an overreaction, but I mean, I guess she has a thing where just she makes people want to kill her, real bad, and they do it, one way or another, usually involving some sort of stabbing, chopping, tearing apart kind of thing. Also, the teacher broke out of jail, insane asylum, whatever we want to call it, and shows up to claim the body as her father or whatever. And he's like, "Yeah, you can use your kidneys for whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, I knew this is exactly where this was going," because we already know from the other episode that she like regenerates from like dismembered body parts. So the girl in the hospital gets Tomie's kidney, and then Tomie starts growing inside of her and pops out whenever they try to remove her. And I'm like, yeah, that was exactly where that was going to go. So she's probably dead. And Tomie has yet another Tomie clone, a clone Mie, if you will. And so I don't know, because I haven't read all of them. I don't know exactly what Tomie is. She's not a ghost. That much is clear. She might be some sort of demon. We don't know. She's clearly a supernatural entity of some kind. That even the classmates were kind of like, she wasn't really human beforehand either. So she makes more of herself by getting people to cut her up into pieces and then regrowing from the body parts. I'm wondering, because we've never seen anyone try to kill her in any way other than dismemberment, is there a way to kill her and her offspring?
Okay.
Because, I mean, to some degree, she does seem to still age. At least if we presume that the painter is sometime after this most recent series of Why Do You Exist, Tomie? So it's possible that eventually she could just die of old age. Though I wouldn't count on that with that sort of level of regeneration.
Huh.
She's kind of got that Wolverine. Like, does it turn into the Wolverine thing of like, okay, your body heals so much that you just stop aging?
All right, guys, I found something.
You found something on Tomie? Because can I say my theory of how to get rid of her first?
What?
Fire. I mean, you could try other things like poisoning or drowning or a number of other...
Actually, yeah, no, you are right.
I had a feeling, because it's like you have to have cells to regenerate, right? So if you disintegrate her or like burn her to ash or something, my other thought would be it could be really bad, because like what if each piece of ash turned into one? You'd have like an army.
So, okay, so I'm just going to read to you what I'm seeing right here from the plot section of the Wikipedia page. Tomie, she basically acts like a kind of succubus.
Sounds about right.
So she basically like plays on people's like emotions in order to get them to do what she wants, and then when they basically lose their minds and start to like kill her and like cut her up, it basically allows her to like regenerate herself, which
Mm-hmm.
when they removed her kidney was because they removed a part of her. That part could then regenerate itself. So I'm also reading here, her origins are never explained, though it is suggestion by some older men in the series that she has existed long before the events of the manga. In Boy, she is revealed to have known her future teacher, who was the teacher that we saw in the OVAs, Takagi, since he was a child.
Okay, so when she regenerates, does she just go back to, like, being young again?
I think so. The thing is like her body kind of regenerates itself to its most mature form that it had. So,
Okay.
which, if you were paying attention to like at the end and beginning of the two OVAs, where it kind of looks like she was just a growing tree sort of thing, she
Mm-hmm.
looked basically like her older self. She never has like a child phase.
But what about
Um,
when she was a teenager in the school?
yeah, well, I think with a little bit of makeup, she could probably make herself look older.
Hmm.
Um, oh, so she basically copies herself through, her body will attempt to sprout another tummy through tumorous growths, usually when she is emotionally stressed. So that's the
Okay.
thing. Um,
Excuse me. Question. Can there be multiple Tomiyas running around, or is there only, like, ever one? Is this a
it,
regeneration thing to just save herself, or is it I could multiply kind of thing? And there's
so
multiple
from
Tomiyas causing multiple problems at the same time.
if you remember from the actual episode Painter, there were
Mm-hmm.
multiples of her growing.
That's what I was thinking about.
So,
So, like, even if the events of that field trip weren't her first go around, there are still at least 42 others around.
potentially, yeah.
Damn, kill them with fire. That's all I can think.
Yeah, it says fire is the only known method to destroy a Tomie for good,
A
though
Tomie.
only
So, yeah, there's
a
multiples.
Tomie, though only the flesh is completely carbonized. So, there is that.
Okay. I was like thinking about that the whole time. I'm like, this is some kind of monster that like can be destroyed somehow. I'm like, because I was always kind of interested in that. Like when I was younger, it was like the Van Helsing type vampire hunter or whoever else. Like find or like Supernatural. What do you got to do to kill the thing today?
Oh, this is interesting. The
What
next
if?
story arc, beginning as a prequel, reveals that a baby girl can grow naturally into a Tomie via a blood injection, and
Oh
that she
God,
can
she's like the
age
thing.
if she has not yet copied herself.
Okay,
Huh.
gross. What do you
Interesting.
think would happen if the model ate Tomie?
Hmm.
The world would end.
Maybe.
Do you think the model would multiply?
Oh, there are live action films.
I was thinking about if we could watch one of those at some point.
Oh, yeah, I'd totally be up for it.
I don't know if we want to do it like right away, but because we had a couple other things that we wanted to do
Yeah.
moving forward. If we're because we're kind of trying to hopefully go back to doing these on a weekly basis, like we have been for October. But maybe not doing like a whole series at once. Maybe just like sample some things, a little sampler platter each week.
Oh, this is funny.
What?
Well, not funny, but so at the bottom here, in the see also portion, one of the suggestions is Jennifer's body. Interesting choice. Okay.
Okay. You enjoyed that movie, I believe, right?
Yeah. I mean, that movie's an interesting take on, like, female friendships and like how sometimes like while some female friendships are good, others can be toxic. And then I don't know, it was just like sort of an interesting kind of movie. I liked it.
Okay.
Wish the marketing had been done a bit better. Well, a bit differently, but
I mean, I think I remember when that came out, they were pretty much just banking on the fact that Megan Fox was hot.
Literally that, yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they were marketing, and other scenes from the film.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I was watching a YouTube video about it. I believe it was from Amanda the Jedi, who was talking about it, and yeah, I can. It was just like an interesting like take, not interesting take, but just like Amanda was talking about like just like how the marketing and like various things like played into like how like the movie was perceived versus like what the movie actually had in it. So
see, I feel like there's a lot of films you could take from like over the years that like have just had a shit marketing campaign here and there. It's like probably some TV shows too that like were much better than the marketing or the studio was willing to let them be.
Yeah.
For one reason or another. I can't really think of one off the top of my head right now, but I if you gave me a moment, I could probably come up with a few that were like, this did well, but it didn't because of reasons. But in either case, yeah. Did we discuss what we were going to watch for next week?
Well, what did we think of the show overall first? Our final ratings?
What did we think? I liked it. I think this was a good series for overall.
I mean,
it's an anthology, so not every story is going to be as good as the last or as good as the next. Some of them are really good. Some of them are not as great. Some of them, I think to some degree, every episode had something interesting about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give it a low yay. Mostly just because, like, while there were bits of it that I thought, like, had a decent amount, like, of horror that, like, actually got me, that, like, I guess it's just, like, and again, I'm repeating myself from another episode, I feel like Japan's, like, type of horror is a bit different than, like, the Western kind of horror that I'm more used to. So
you're not wrong.
That might just be a bit of a disconnect there, especially considering the kind of horror that I myself personally really like. I'm really into supernatural horror, stuff that's a little more dark, usually more has to do with ghosts.
That was like half of these episodes, though.
It was in some of them, but it wasn't in all of them. And I feel like the episodes where even that was had, like, I don't know, I wasn't scared. Like, I thought they were good, but it wasn't like I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for something to happen, you know?
Right.
So, because I guess that's what I kind of look for when I watch horror. I'm sort of looking to be, like, kind of on the edge of my seat. But, yeah, that's just me.
Okay. Yeah, that's reasonable. What about you, Envy?
There were definitely stories that I liked. Like, I want a full-on movie adaptation of Boy at the Crossroads, but
I'll agree
in
with
all
that.
honesty, I'm kind of at a meh. It honestly just makes me want to just read the manga instead, because at least then I'll have good art to look at instead of mediocre animation.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, the art style wasn't great. The only place where the art looked really good was in Smashed, where they did close-ups of the feet at the beginning and end of the episode.
I also think that maybe it was just a bad adaptation or mediocre adaptation, but I feel like those types of stories usually do well if you have more time to flesh out the world and the characters. Like, almost make each story a half an hour show, like in Goosebumps or Tales from the Crypt or whatever, and just spend more time focused on developing the world and the characters to make you more connected and, stuff like that.
I personally would have, like, going along with what you said, NB, I feel like if they focused on one particular set of short stories, that could have been something. Like, had they just focused on, like, Tomie and her storyline, I feel that that could potentially have been, like, a good miniseries or, like, a good, like, 12 episodes, maybe, depending on how much they flesh it out. But
I mean, I'm in agreement with you on that. I think for like certain characters that certainly would have worked with, as much as I probably wouldn't have watched it, I think they could probably make a series out of Suichi, at least a short one.
oh
But
yeah, they could
at the same
probably
time,
make a miniseries out of that.
I just felt like some
kinda-
of the stories were just like I especially in the back half of the series, I felt like they really didn't give enough. Granted, maybe the stories were like that originally written to be, more ambiguous or not as fleshed out. But I don't know. I kind of would want more subs. I don't want everything spoon fed to me. I
No,
like
yeah.
some things are up for interpretation, but I felt like some of the stories were like, really, that's how it ends. Like, why should I care?
I mean,
I
I
mean-
think that's a bit of the mystique of it is the fact that a lot of it is up to interpretation.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. And I think like some of these stories are just like even if you want to look at like an American urban legend or like the hook-handed man or whatever from the car ride. There's like a whole bunch of different
Polybius.
ghost stories. Yeah, they're very short. They're something you tell around a campfire real quick. It's there and it's gone. There's not a whole lot of explanation behind them. And I think that's kind of what this is capturing, because it's like it's not like we're gonna have a whole world for these ghosts kind of thing. It's a short, simple kind of like, here's some ghosts. They live on a bridge. Here's what they want. Here's what they get. And then the world keeps turning. But yeah, to some of them, again, yeah, Tomie, Suichi, Boy at the Crossroads. Again, I agree with you. I'd like to see more of that. But
Yeah.
like, I don't think it would have worked for everything. I think I am happy that even though we didn't get everything, even though I didn't get everything that I wanted out of this, even though I didn't get like the larger stories with Tomie or with the Boy at the Crossroads, I'm glad I got a little taste of everything the guy's done. Again, not everything, but a nice little sample platter of a lot of his things.
And honestly, this
'Cause,
is
like-
kind of... No, keep going.
Because like some of them I think just work on their own as like a small short thing, like
Yeah.
Snail Girl. What else could
I
you have
was
done?
honest-
I don't think there's much else you could have done with
I
that.
was honestly just thinking about that too.
Because that one worked. It gave you enough time that like you were invested. Like, I don't want to say heavily invested, but it was kind of like, oh, I feel sympathy for this person, And then the scary air quotes thing happens, and you're like, ooh, And I think that's sometimes all there. It's kind of like a pulp magazine.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess my one example of what I was talking about would be like the alternate dimension story. I forget what one that was called. I felt like
What's
it
His
left me
Name's
with
House,
more
yeah.
questions than answers or something like that, especially with the ending.
True, and I don't know if that was like one of those ones that like Tomie it continued. It doesn't seem to have like characters in there where I'm like, okay, you could definitely like milk this character for a little while. But yeah, I think it and a number of other stuff presented enough interesting ideas there that I'm like, I'm happy that I got to see these and these specific stories. Other ones, they're a little but for a guy is basically, this guy does kind of write a prolific number of short stories. He's kind of like R.L. Stein. It's kind of like Goosebumps. Not every Goosebump is a good book,
Yeah.
but the good ones are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of thought of it like that.
And
That just
also,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was just thinking that like another thing with this. Hey, Houdini, stop that. Ugh. Anyway, another thing with this is like that this anime is more. It's less like showing you the fullness of his work, and it's more just giving you something to like grasp onto. So if you even just really liked one of his short stories, like you can look up the manga for it, because it is in its own way, and I hate to say it, it is kind of like an advertisement for the manga itself. Does that make sense?
Oh, it definitely
does,
is.
yeah.
A lot of anime are like that, where they just, they have no intention of fully adapting everything. They just want newcomers to get used to it so they can sell more copies of the manga.
And here's where I'm going to say why I'm okay with that here and not in other places.
Right.
I feel like because this isn't an overall story.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't an overall arcing story that you blue ball people at the end with by not finishing it. I think this is good for this because ultimately, whether they're doing all of his work, which I think would take so long to do, they did not leave a story unfinished. I think that's why I'm okay with that. This being an advertisement for his larger body of work. Versus you do like, here's one season that we made of a manga, but we're not going to make any more because you can just go read the manga. But, you left everything hanging, and what happens next, and we want to know, but, like, you won't tell us. So, yeah, yeah. I don't know, maybe like a one-shot season thing. Maybe there should be more one-shot seasons of people who do write anthology series. I think it'd be interesting to see every now and then.
Like now we just need a H.P. Lovecraft anime.
I mean,
without the racism.
Well, I wasn't gonna say that, but there is that Narlathotep-san, Nyarko whatever thing where all the Lovecraft monsters are waifus.
I forgot about that. Oh
yeah,
gosh.
I mean, that's a thing.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that's a thing.
Of course it's a thing. It would be a thing. But yeah. Overall, I think it for me was I'd give it a yay. I'd say check it out if you're interested in horror, Japanese horror, urban legend type things. And check out the guy's work overall. I might, I think the anime did its job. I might pick up a Junji Ito manga and give a couple of those read. I at least want to see some more of like what Tomie did, and I especially want to know what happened with the boy at the crossroads.
Yeah.
Because that was an unfinished story. I'm a little blue-balled there. But I'd be interested in seeing more of it. So, anywho, next week we decided that we're gonna in the spirit of sample platters. We're thinking maybe for the rest of the year, just instead of starting a series and going all the way through it, we're just gonna sample the first 3 episodes of some series. Like next week, 3 episodes of one show, move on to another show next week, and see how we like things. Because we've been avoiding really long series because it would take so long to watch all of them the way that we do it.
Yep.
But if we just watch the first 3 episodes of something, not that big of a deal. And it gives us a little sample of the show that maybe we could look at later, or not, or just get an idea of stuff. And we're thinking, like, it'd be fun, because we had such fun with Mew Mew. Mm-hmm. Just looking back at something that at least 2 of us in the group grew up with.
I didn't grow up with this. But...
No, I know you didn't. But like, it's an older show. We're gonna look at some older shows, hopefully with some funny ass dubs in them.
Oh, you're gonna in for a treat for this one.
Envy, tell the good people what we're watching next week.
Well, in the early 2000s, Nintendo decided to put out a few anime of their shows, such as F-Zero, and of course the one that we're watching, Kirby Right Back at Ya. It's a different name in Japan, but in America it was called that. And we'll be watching the 4Kids dub, where they make some choices that I absolutely love, and is my personal handcanon for the Kirby main game series.
It's 4Kids. How can you go wrong? Let me rephrase that. How can you go right? Exactly how you did it.
I won't spoil what they do with some of the characters. Let's just say you're in for a treat.
I'm sure it is, and I'm looking forward to it. Heck, we might look at a bunch of 4Kids dubs before the end of the year, if we can.
Whoa! Oh, and let's mention where people can find it. You can actually find it all here on the playlist on YouTube.
Yep. So go look that up and Try to find that. We'll just watch the first 3 episodes because it's like a 100-episode anime.
Yep,
Something
100
like that.
episodes.
So we might be checking out that. We might check out Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Digimon, all sorts of. Who knows? If Saban or 4Kids dubbed it, it might be. You know what? 4Kids One Piece. Why not? I don't know. We'll see what happens. For now, Kirby right back at you. Alright, we'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to watch Kirby. Bye-bye.
Boy.
Boyo.
Hey, thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon for notifications. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, and feel free to check out some of our other gaming videos, our weekly podcast Anime Yay or Nay, or our parody series Madoka Magically Abridged. See you next time!